The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains, casting golden rays across the room. The blue sapphire necklace lay on my vanity, catching the light with an almost magical glow. This necklace had been passed down through generations, from my great-great-grandmother to my mother, and finally to me. It symbolized resilience, love, and legacy. Never did I imagine that it would one day be the cause of a deep rift between me and my daughter, Zoe. Zoe was my only child, the center of my world. From her first hesitant steps to playing her first full piano recital, each milestone filled me with pride. But as she grew older, the bond that once connected us began to fray. It was subtle at first, like hairline cracks in porcelain. By the time she was 17, those cracks were deep and jagged, with sharp edges that cut into both of us. My ex-husband, Stan, had always been a man of ambition. We met in college, full of dreams and optimism. Our love felt timeless back then, built on shared aspirations and late-night conversations about our future. But as the years passed and Stan's ambitions grew, so did the distance between us. The family business consumed him, and eventually, he found solace elsewhere, with Linda, his secretary. The affair was a betrayal that shattered our already fragile marriage, but it was the impact on Zoe that truly broke my heart. Mark, my father-in-law, was a formidable presence. In his 60s, he still commanded respect in every boardroom and family gathering. After Stan's mother passed away when he was just a boy, Mark raised him alone, instilling in him the drive that would one day define him. Mark had always been kind to me, treating me like a daughter and supporting me through difficult times. He even defended me when the truth about Stan's infidelity came to light, almost disowning Stan for the betrayal. Despite the tension, Stan and I remained civil for Zoe's sake. She split her time between our homes, which was easier once Stan moved in with Linda. I tried to create a warm and stable environment for Zoe, ensuring she had the best of everything. Still, I could sense that the dynamic in Stan's house was changing her. Linda was eager to please and build a bond with Zoe, presenting herself as a friend rather than a potential stepmother. Over time, Zoe seemed to grow attached to Linda, a shift that pained me more than I was willing to admit. The final year of Zoe's high school was a whirlwind. She poured herself into her studies and extracurriculars, determined to impress her grandfather, Mark, who had promised to set up a business in her name once she graduated college. It was a golden opportunity, and Zoe knew it. She worked tirelessly, but the weight of expectations and the divorce's residual bitterness wore on her. Things came to a head during her senior year talent show. Zoe had been practicing for weeks, perfecting her piano piece. On the day of the recital, I was caught in an unexpected work crisis. Deadlines loomed, and as much as I tried to leave on time, I was held up. I called Stan to make sure he would be there, only to find out he was at the hospital with Linda for a routine prenatal checkup that had run late. Panic surged through me as I tried to reach Mark, but my calls went unanswered. By the time I arrived, Zoe was already leaving the auditorium, her face etched with disappointment. "Congratulations, sweetheart," I said, reaching out to hug her. She stepped back, her expression cold. "Don't bother, Mom." I walked home by myself. The sting of her words was sharp. I tried to apologize, but she wouldn't hear it. The silence that followed was a prelude to the emotional distance that grew between us. A few months later, after Zoe had aced her finals and received her college acceptance letter, she came to stay with me. Stan and Linda were preparing for the arrival of their baby, and space was tight. One afternoon, as we sat at the kitchen table, Zoe brought up college expenses. "Mom, I need to know if you're going to cover my tuition. I want to finalize everything before classes start," she said, tapping her pen against her notebook. "I'm planning to cover half, I replied, setting my coffee mug down. Your father agreed to cover the other half. Zoe's expression darkened. Dad said he can't, not with the baby coming. He doesn't have enough. A familiar tension gripped my chest. That's not fair to you, Zoe. He should contribute. Maybe he just needs more time. Mom, there isn't any more time. I need to know now, she interrupted. Her voice was laced with urgency. I could take out a loan, but it would be so much easier if you just sold something. It was then she reached into her pocket and placed the blue sapphire necklace on the table. My heart sank as I realized she had found it in the attic among my mother's belongings. I checked. This is worth enough to cover everything, she said, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of hope and determination. Zoe, no, I said firmly. That necklace is a part of our family's history. It's not just jewelry, it's a legacy. Her face fell and then hardened. What's the point of a legacy if it can't help when we need it most? I tried to explain, but she stormed off, leaving the necklace glinting coldly on the table. By the time I went to her room, she was packing. I'm going to Dad's, she said without looking up. Zoe, please don't do this. Let's talk about it. There's nothing to talk about, she snapped, zipping her suitcase. Graduation day arrived, and I dressed in my best outfit, hoping to watch Zoe receive her diploma. But when the invitation came, it was only for the post-graduation party at Stan's house. I texted Zoe, thinking there had been a mistake. School only allows one parent. I'm taking Dad, she replied curtly. My heart sank, but I put on a brave face. Later that evening, as I scrolled through social media, I saw a post from Zoe. She was standing on stage, smiling broadly between Stan and Linda. My absence was glaring. I attended the party at Stan's house, trying to be gracious. Mark was there, and he approached me with a sympathetic look. I'm sorry you weren't at the ceremony, he said. It's fine, Mark, I lied. I wasn't feeling well. When Zoe took the microphone to give her speech, I held my breath, hoping for a mention. She spoke of Stan and Linda, calling Linda her good luck charm. But there was no mention of me. Not one word. I felt the weight of Mark's gaze on me, and before I could process my emotions, I saw him stride toward Zoe. Their exchange was brief, but intense. When she came back, her eyes were red, and she pulled me aside. Why did you tell Grandpa everything? She hissed. That evening at the party, the tension was palpable. Conversations buzzed around me, but I felt disconnected, standing on the periphery as if I were a stranger in my own life. Mark's brief, heated conversation with Zoe had set off a ripple effect, and soon the whole room seemed on edge. Stan noticed the change in atmosphere and came over, trying to ease the discomfort with his usual charm. Is everything okay? He asked, casting a wary glance at Zoe, who was now seated in a corner with her arms crossed. I forced a smile. Yes, everything's fine. Stan wasn't convinced, but before he could press further, Mark stepped forward. His face was stern, the kind of expression that silenced a room. Stan, we need to talk, Mark said, his voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent, guests shifting uncomfortably as Mark led Stan into a private room. Linda looked worried, and Zoe's eyes darted between them, clearly anxious. I took the opportunity to slip outside for air, the cool breeze calming the storm inside me. The sound of the back door creaking open made me turn. It was Zoe. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice trembling. The anger from earlier was gone, replaced by something that looked a lot like guilt. I'm not doing anything, Zoe, I said quietly. You made choices, and now those choices have consequences. She hugged herself, eyes welling up with tears. You don't understand, Mom. I just wanted to feel important, to have everyone see me as more than just your daughter or Dad's kid. Linda made me feel seen. Her confession was raw, unexpected. I stepped closer, softening my tone. Zoe, I've always seen you. I've always been proud of you. But you can't trade loyalty and integrity for a moment of recognition. She turned away, brushing away her tears angrily. You wouldn't understand. 2 days later, I received a call from Mark. He sounded tired, the kind of weariness that came from carrying the weight of disappointment. Can you come by my house tonight? We need to talk, he said. I arrived at Mark's estate just as the sun was setting, the sprawling lawn bathed in a golden glow. Inside, Mark sat in his study, a glass of scotch in hand. He motioned for me to sit, exhaling deeply before he spoke. Zoe lied to me, he said bluntly. She tried to twist the story to make it seem like you were the villain. But I know better now. I'm sorry for doubting you. Hearing his apology was both a relief and a reminder of how far things had unraveled. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. He set his glass down, the sharp clink punctuating the silence. I've decided to withdraw my offer of the business until Zoe proves herself. She needs to learn responsibility and the value of hard work. I nodded, understanding but still feeling the sting of seeing my daughter pushed further away. I agree, but it's not going to be easy for her. That's the point, Mark said, his voice firm. It's time she understands that actions have consequences. That evening, I went home with a heavy heart. Zoe would soon learn that she had lost more than just a business opportunity. She had lost the trust of those who cared about her most. The following morning, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Stan and Zoe. The notifications lit up my screen with a relentless urgency, each text a reminder of the chaos our family was embroiled in. Can we talk, Mom? One of Zoe's texts read. Please, I need to fix this. I debated whether to respond, the motherly part of me wanting to comfort her, while the rational side urged me to hold firm. Before I could decide, my phone rang. It was Mark. She wants to meet with us. All of us. I think we should hear her out, he said. That evening, we gathered at Mark's house. Zoe was already there, standing by the window with her back to us. Stan sat beside Linda, who looked as if she'd rather be anywhere else. Mark and I took our seats, the room filling with a tense silence. Zoe turned around, eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry, she began, her voice cracking. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you, Mom. Grandpa, I messed everything up. Her apology hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. Mark's expression softened, but he stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. I thought if I could just make things right with the money, with the college, everything would fall into place. I didn't mean to make you the bad guy, Mom. I was angry and I took it out on you, she admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. I felt a pang in my chest, a mix of pity and frustration. Zoe, it's not just about the money or college. It's about trust. You can't build your future by tearing down the people who love you. Stan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing, his guilt palpable. Linda's eyes darted between us, a silent observer in the drama unfolding. Mark cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Zoe, you're young, and you have time to learn. But you need to show us that you can change. Apologies are just words unless you back them up with actions. Zoe nodded, tears streaming down her face. I will, Grandpa. I promise. Over the next few weeks, things began to change, albeit slowly. Zoe started therapy, something Mark and I insisted on. She took a part-time job at a local cafe to save for her college tuition, a humbling experience that forced her to confront the realities of financial responsibility. I watched from a distance as she navigated this new chapter, her pride giving way to determination. Stan and Linda remained on the sidelines, their relationship with Zoe strained and distant. Mark kept his promise and did not reinstate the business offer, but he softened in his demeanor toward Zoe, giving her a chance to earn back his respect. One day, Zoe showed up at my house unannounced. She stood on the porch, holding a bouquet of flowers. "For you," she said, her voice tentative. I took the flowers, feeling the warmth of forgiveness begin to thaw the cold distance between us. We sat in the living room, sipping tea and talking for hours about her classes, her job, and the lessons she was learning. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. "I know I can't fix everything overnight," she said, looking at me with eyes that reminded me of the little girl who once played piano recitals and chased butterflies in the yard. "But I want to try, Mom." Tears welled up in my eyes, and I reached out to take her hand. "That's all I need, Zoe. Just try." Months turned into a year, and the rifts in our family began to heal, albeit slowly. Mark continued to mentor Zoe, teaching her the ins and outs of business ethics and hard work. She worked tirelessly, proving herself in ways that surprised even me. The sapphire necklace remained in my possession, a symbol not just of family legacy, but of resilience and redemption. Stan, on the other hand, faced the consequences of his own actions. With Mark's decision to remove him from the company, he struggled to find his footing. The experience humbled him, forcing him to reevaluate his role as a father and partner. Linda stood by him, though their relationship bore the scars of their tumultuous past. Zoe's relationship with me improved with each passing day. She completed her first year of college with a renewed sense of purpose, taking pride in earning her way. We weren't the perfect family, but we were learning to move forward, step by step, mending the fractures and rebuilding trust. As I sat on the porch one warm afternoon, the blue sapphire necklace around my neck, Zoe came out to join me. She looked at the necklace, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I get it now, Mom. Why you wouldn't sell it," she said. I squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of the past lift just a little. "I knew you would one day." In that moment, I realized that despite the pain and mistakes, we were stronger for it. And maybe, just maybe, we would be okay to. I didn't. "He just knows," I said, confused. Well, now he's furious. Thanks for ruining my day.